You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties. Join us. Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and improv news stories because we're the best sneetches on beaches to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike, we have a special guest today.
Woohoo!
Special guest, where are you?
Hi, I'm Sam, and I am super thankful for this opportunity to be on here.
Yay, Sam.
And to catch up with you guys. Yay!
Woohoo!
Yay. Sam,
We have known Sam forever.
And
Yeah. I'm glad you said forever because I almost named numbers and I'm like, no, that'll make us sound too old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I almost did for a second, and then I was like, wait, my age is showing. Quickly, hide it.
So Sam, we are so excited to have you here. And anyone who doesn't know Sam, you are the leader. I guess you must be the creator, the public face of the Western New York horror crew, and the proprietor of Jerry's Closet in East Aurora, Western New York, the one-stop pop culture shop for all your geeky needs.
Yes, my brother and I created Western New York Horror Crew to kind of be able to have people in Western New York area that are artists and creative minds be able to have a place or places when we do events that they can have their stuff out there and get the word out on them. And then the Jerry's Closet is our nerd thrift store, which is basically everything my dad's been collecting his whole life and some stuff that my brother and I have been too. And we're just there to give it a second home to anybody that wants to come in and purchase it.
Oh, I mean, I would love to come. If I didn't live many states away, thousands of miles away, I can't wait next time I'm in New York to visit my mother. I can't wait to make the drive out there and just raid your comic boxes.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. And my favorite part about being there at the shop every weekend is when people come in and they're like, oh, I used to have this, or oh, I used to play that game, or watch that movie, or listen to that, or I know someone that's totally gonna love this. That's really cool.
Yeah,
the
I
only
love that.
thing is you have to fight Omei for some of the stuff,
Yeah, Michael May, the head of the Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mosh. Monster Mosh? I always want to say Monster Mosh. Maybe
Monster
I
Mosh.
might just change the name of it. The head of the Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash podcast. I know he's always bragging on the podcast about how he was like, yeah, I just called Sam and just bought the shit before it even went on the floor. And
I know.
like,
There's so many pieces. I was like, damn it, I didn't even know about that one.
He's got our PayPal on speed dial, so he's
Right.
just like, oh, I sent you money already, so it's mine. Just let you know, put it in my box. We literally have a box in the store behind the register that has his name on it.
It's his pull bin.
yeah, it's open.
Yep.
Exactly. That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Well, yeah, but if you have any listings online somewhere, maybe I'll check out some stuff before I come to visit. But man, I just love the hunt. I love just digging through boxes, looking for hidden gems. So I can't wait to
yeah.
come up. But yeah, we are super stoked to have you here. You're one of our oldest friends, especially when it comes to pop culture, geek, nerd, franchise love type stuff. We grew up struggling and looking for our kindred spirits, right? Other people who were into comics and horror and punk and metal music and all the sort of edge of society stuff that we fell in love with as kids, and as adults we found each other in Western New York and became friends. And even though now some of us are spread out all over the country, and sometimes we don't talk for long periods of time, but whatever, because we always end up jumping right back into a conversation like it was nothing, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, we're super stoked to have you here, Sam. And, I got to say, I'll give credit where credit's due. What you were doing with the Western New York Horror Crew was definitely part of my inspiration for starting up the Red Pantheon, which I'll talk about when we do the social media plugs at the end. But, I was looking to just try to connect with some other, people doing podcasting and artwork, and I love just sharing the word like I do on Comics Boost, where I just tell people about comics. I don't even make them. I just tell people about them because they're so cool. And so, what you were doing is kind of like getting people together so you had like a single place, you know, a single channel, right, to kind of get your stuff out there at conventions and concerts or whatever. So that was definitely really cool. So I was definitely stoked when you came and joined the Red Pantheon with us, because now we have so many more cool projects just by association.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many great people out there and so much stuff that just people need to experience. We love it and they should love it too. And if they don't, that's cool. Maybe somebody they know will. They can pass it along.
Yep.
If they're anything like us, they'll have lots of like hidden geeks in their life, people who kind of keep it quiet because maybe they're a little embarrassed about like the, you know, the extreme stuff that they're into, or you know, the level of their geekdom that maybe like their family doesn't really get. You know.
Yep.
I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking, but I'll say it here. I went to go get my hair cut today, or yesterday rather, and I went to the place where I normally go, but the lady who normally cuts my hair wasn't available. So I was like, well, whatever, whoever's here, I'll just get my hair cut. Everybody's pretty good. And I ended up talking with this person, you know, who had some cool like anime and like manga tattoos I could see. And I'm not big into anime and manga in general, unless it's horror. So I was like, yeah, I think I kind of recognize that character. And we were just chit chatting for a second. And they asked me what, you know, TV shows or movies I've been watching. We were just like making conversation. And I was like, well, I haven't really watched much lately because I've been trying to get through this giant to-read pile that I have of all these comics that I've bought that I haven't read. So I've been putting more focus on that. And it kind of led into the stylist asking a couple of like careful probing questions about, oh, what kind of comics and, you know, how long you've been reading and blah, blah, blah. And I'm over here going, yeah, I don't want to get too nerdy. Yeah, 90s comics, like whatever. And long story short, before long, I found out that, like me, this person is a huge New Warriors fan and a huge fan of early 90s Image comics. But this is but they're much younger, and they found it later on in life, like going back and looking at like old stuff and finding like hidden gems from like before their time. And I'm like, and we totally geeked out about like Nova the Human Rocket and shit. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
I love introducing like younger generations to stuff. Like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I've been kind of feeling this, watching this. And it's like, oh, you got to read this then. Or, oh, you got to watch this. Like, you'll totally enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, heck, I've done that with Tegan, Josh, where they'll text me, you know, hey, like, what's a good possession movie? And then I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's talk about this. And I'm just like blowing up their phone with all these different suggestions.
And see, I'm glad you did that too, because I had to stop because Tegan is like my kid, and like I'm, you know, I guess I'm a pretty cool dad, but I'm still dad. So when Tegan mentions that, you know, they're into, you know, a certain movie or anime or something, or a horror comic, and I'm like you said, Sam, I'm like, oh, you should read this and read this and read this, and what about this? And it's like, oh, whatever, Dad, you're you're just an old head, you know? And I'm like, oh, come on. So then I'll text you and be like, I really want Tegan to watch this movie.
Right. They'll be like, hey, you should totally watch.
Totally unsolicited suggestion. You should watch those Conjuring movies or whatever, you know?
But then you have to make sure it's like age appropriate too. Like that's my biggest mistake. I remember like letting my nephew borrow something when he was like 14, and Brandon was like, I don't think you should have done that. I mean, I don't think it's really like quite age appropriate.
Well, and you know, I don't think any of us have a good gauge of that because of what we were allowed to ingest when we were children. Because I know, like, with Caleb was really young, like, obviously, you know, I'm a huge horror nerd. So he kept wanting to see the movie that the weird face on my wall belongs to. I have Trash's face from Return of the Living Dead, like her zombie face. So he wanted to see the movie that was from. So we watched Return of the Living Dead, and he wasn't scared at all by it. It was just like, you know, whatever. And then we watched the sequel, and so I was like, oh yeah, he's liking horror movies. So then my dumbass on Father's Day puts on Creepshow. And we're watching it, and I'm all excited, you know, and it gets to the scene where I forget her name, but the old lady bashes her dad's head in with the ashtray, and we don't even see it. It's just kind of implied. That scared him so bad. Like, he was like 5. He covered his eyes, and he was done, you know, and I was like, oh my God, I screwed up. And Jess is like, why would you show him this? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. I have so many stories about that. Like with Tegan is super obsessed with horror, but I had to like ease them into it more for my own comfort level. But and while they love gore and horror, but they get like really uncomfortable when things get like sexy, when there's like sex scenes and stuff,
Yep.
you know. And so yeah, I made that mistake once of I thinking that Tegan was old enough to just go grab whatever like comics off my shelf. There's a couple up there that you probably shouldn't read, and I'll point those out. But other than that, like, yeah, have fun. Like, it's a library. Go check it out. And they happened to pick a comic by James Kolchalka, who does a lot of like kids comics that they remembered when they were younger, and then took it to school to have something to read during a test, and then came home that day and was like, Dad, why didn't you lend me this book? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like James Kolchalka. It's like cutesy elves and shit. And it was like full of sex. And I'm like, what the fuck? I forgot I forgot it was even in there because I'm just so like used. I'm so inured to all of that. Like, it's no big deal, from our generation. And I'm like, oh God, they were like 12.
Yep.
I was like, oh shit. So now I gotta be more careful with Griffin.
Yeah.
Last year I watched The Sadness with my nephew, that new movie that just came out, and it's definitely not appropriate for younger children. Oh man. I felt like I traumatized them. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time I put on the Shawshank Redemption one time, thinking it'll be like, it's dark, but like it's a good movie. You learn a lot from it. It has really good like hopeful lessons at the end and a happy ending. Not remembering how much sexual abuse is in that movie, and I'm like, oh God, I forgot. But my fucking mom took me to see that when I was like 15. Anyway,
everything was acceptable.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, things were so different back then. Anyway, that reminds me, Mike, you mentioned your favorite movie of all time, Return of the Living Dead. And that is the perfect segue for what we're going to talk about today, because we're sitting here having a great time talking with Samm, and we could just go on and on, just telling old stories and comparing all these geek life experiences we've had. But one thing we definitely all have in common is we love zombies, and you guys are both like huge horror heads, way more so than me. But when it comes to horror movies, I love haunted house movies and I love zombie movies, and I especially love comedy horror. So I am also a huge fan of Return of the Living Dead. And we were shooting the shit talking about it, and I thought this is the perfect opportunity to have Samm come on and we can just riff on a horror comedy zombie story. And what better one to riff on than Return of the Living Dead? So, Mike, Samm, what do you think? Should we jump in and make up some kind of a sequel or a remake? And I just want to have something where we can I think it'd be funny to do some kind of like a weird like teen romance. But anyway, what do you think?
No, absolutely. I think we should probably plug a sequel somewhere in the franchise before the abominations that 4 and 5 are happened. So no, like maybe like come in right after 2, like especially if we're gonna do like a more comedic thing. Part 2 was very part 2 was almost family friendly in its level of comedy. So like we could even like instead of having part 3 follow it up, we could do like a part 3 here and then have the Brian Yuzna part 3 come in as part 4 and say forget 4 and 5 ever happened.
Yeah, we don't need those.
I feel like this is the perfect kid zombie movie. Anytime anybody's like, oh, do you recommend kind of something that's zombie that's like kid friendly? Return of the Living Dead Part 2, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely part 2. I was gonna say I thought you meant the first one, and I was like, wait, doesn't Trash like take her gear off in this movie?
Yeah. No. Part 2.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny because I didn't rewatch part 2. I should have. I wanted to. I ran out of time, so I was watching like a supercut of the clips just to refresh my memory, even though I've seen it a bunch of times. And it kind of dawned on me that I really like the end of part 1. Where there's that bombing and then the trioxin, the zombie juice, for anyone who's unfamiliar, right? The trioxin that caused the zombie outbreak, it like gets in the atmosphere and it starts to rain. There's this sort of ominous cliffhanger almost of like, ooh, like it could happen again. And then you get part 2 and it has a totally different ending. And I don't think it contradicts the first one in any way, and like the weakness of the zombies. Like you, Mike, you're the expert, so correct me. But as I'm watching this like supercut, I'm like, part two is almost a prequel. It almost works better to come before the first one, especially when you take into account in the first Return of the Living Dead, they talk a lot about how like Night of the Living Dead, oh, that really happened, and like the government like hushed it up, and almost as. And then when you look at the beginning of part two, where they like lose a barrel of trioxin, it's like, again, if that had happened before the first one, it almost would have made more sense. Am I completely crazy here?
No, I mean, it definitely would have made more sense for it to go that way, but it almost feels like they were doing that thing that we did a lot in the 80s and 90s, where it's the hand wave, ignore the original, and just kind of make up our own lore with the second one. Because in the first one, the You Need a Medical Supply warehouse accidentally had those barrels shipped to them. And they had like 20 of them down in the basement. There was like a bunch down there. So it was the whole thing of like they showed up with a shipment of other stuff that they weren't supposed to get. So instead of, calling in the army, they were just like, fuck it, hide them, which is just stupid. But, that's so they did that. And then in part two, for whatever reason, they comment in the beginning that the military was they tried to use trioxin, it didn't work out. It was too powerful, blah, blah, blah. So they were gonna cover it all up. So they were transporting the barrels. And then, we get the guy smoking weed and have the really badly belted in barrels. And one of them goes flying, and somehow ends up out of the river and in a storm drain that's above the river. I'm not really sure on how that worked, but, whatever.
Hand waving.
Exactly. And then, when we get to part three, it's more of the same. It's like they don't discuss the fact that, Kentucky was nuked, or that this small housing development was overrun and ransacked by zombies. Part three, it's just like, so we have this trioxin and we want to use it.
Yeah. And so the reason I mentioned it is like literally every time I watch the first Return of the Living Dead, and I see that ending where the trioxin gets in the atmosphere, and it seems like it's going to spread wherever it's raining, like wherever the storm goes. And I'm like, I want to see that movie. Like, where is it raining? How big is the storm? How widespread is whatever that future outbreak is? And when we were, behind the scenes, when we were shooting the shit, trying to come up with, something to talk about when we invited Samm on, we talk about different types of zombie movies and funny ones. And I remember loving, when I was a kid, My Boyfriend's Back, which I haven't seen in a super long time, but that came out in 1993. And I was just thinking, like, it would be really fun to do that type of a zombie movie where it's something really kind of silly and funny, we can maybe go a little edgier with it, but I just like the general vibe. And I thought it would be really funny if we could do something where, this storm spreads unbeknownst to the military, because they're like, yep, you successfully bombed it, like, it's been contained to 20 blocks or whatever, and then the storm goes off and causes this other outbreak, but the other outbreak happens in this totally different sort of way. So instead of getting like flesh-eating zombies, you get like, people who just happen to be dead who are like trying to go on with their life,
like Fido.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just watching this presentation on Mount St. Helen, and it erupted in 1980, and they didn't clear enough area, so there was like a whole town that basically got like destroyed, covered, a bunch of people died and stuff that didn't think that they were going to be in that zone. And then there was also this area that was like miles away on a map that also was contaminated, but it was so far away from the zone where everything went out. So maybe we can go along the lines as like, hey, this is so far away, it's so weird that it even reached this town, so maybe that can tie into something different kind of happening there.
Okay.
But,
yeah. I think that would be fun. And like, I don't even really have any idea, for like a plot really. Again, you look at something like My Boyfriend's Back, which I just thought of because I love the fact that like the guy's just dead, but like trying to ignore it,
Right.
Which is that's kind of the comedic setup of the movie. And like, he still wants to go to the prom and everything. And of course, like in the town's like trying to, they're all trying to kill him and stop him because they think he's like, the brain-eating, flesh-eating, like living dead, but he's just like, I just want to go to high school, and I just kind of thought that would be funny because, yeah, exactly, Sam. Like you could have this storm fly somewhere, and you could have this whole like little miniature outbreak before the military would find out about it. Very much kind of like, most of the first Return of the Living Dead movie, where there's a little mini outbreak before, oh shit, other people find out about it,
Right.
And I just think we could do something fun with that, where we'd have this little pocket where we could do almost anything we wanted, or even a different type of zombie, because who knows what trioxin happens in the atmosphere. I don't know. It's hand wavy bullshit. And just have some fun with it.
I think it's funny because we all kind of ended up in the same realm, but in different paths. Because I didn't go with the storm and my concept. What I was thinking is how Return of the Living Dead 2 took place in this housing development, and like this whole like town where they were building a bunch of stuff, and the town got like evacuated except for that handful of people that were trapped there. Now the military, they well, first of all, we find out that you can electrocute the zombies and kill them, which I never really liked, but whatever, we'll play with that. They electrocuted the zombies and killed them, and then the military troops are coming in with flamethrowers and burning them at the end, which we know is bad.
Yes.
So, but they're doing that at the end, and all I kept thinking of is Love Canal, where it's like you have this area where a bunch of waste was disposed of, and then they built on top of it. And they're like, oh yeah, no, we got rid of the waste, but they didn't get rid of the waste. So what I was thinking is like, okay, so this whole housing development gets scrapped, right? The freaking zombies were like mutilated on that land. Well, they're still trioxin infused bodies. Like, wouldn't it seep down into the soil? Couldn't it cause something? Wouldn't there be they're melting zombies there? Like, wouldn't that gunk get down into the soil? So what I was thinking is like several years later, because again, different start to the outbreak. That's kind of where my mind was. Several years later, they build a mall on that land.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be cool. And like the groundwater is like contaminated, right?
Yes.
It's like, where's Erin Brockovich when you need her?
the thing that I thought of like right off the bat, like kick the opening, open the film with this, is we have two janitors, of course, played by Tom Matthews and James Karen.
Of course.
They need a comment about it being familiar again too.
Oh, of course. Well, because they'll get turned. Because the way I had this whole thing was like they're complaining to the mall owner that there's this gunk leaking up from the sewer drains in the basement that smells awful, and the manager writes it off as shit and tells them just clean it up. So of course, they're down there cleaning it. One of them slips in the gunk, and the other one starts laughing. So like maybe James Karen slips in it, and Tom Matthews is like, ha ha ha. And he grabs a handful of this gunk and throws it at the other guy, gets all in his face. So they have literally a zombified gunk fight and infect themselves. I was thinking, haha, slapstick. But we see the shit getting splattered around the storeroom. And it gets into like the Slurpee supplies. And then we do a montage of the mall, all these people running around, and we see people drinking the Slurpees and eating like Annie's pretzel and all that, not knowing that they're eating contaminated food and eventually will turn.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm getting like Cabin Fever vibes too, with like water and shit, right? But,
well, if they have a random piece of body part floating in the Slurpee.
right. So like Phantom of the Mall, like we'll have like a fucking ear in a Slurpee.
Yeah. There's gotta be some girl with like big crazy teased up hair who like pulls like part of like a finger out of her drink, and she turns to her boyfriend and she's like, oh Tom, you prankster or whatever, and like not even realizing it's like a fucking real like zombie finger knuckle.
Have her lick it off.
And then of course the boyfriend's like, what babe, it wasn't me, I didn't do nothing. Oh man, it's real quick before we go any further away. Yeah, Sam, to your point, that's perfect, right? And I love this, Mike, when James Karen and Tom Matthews have like the gunk fight, but like Tom like slips in it or whatever. You gotta have like James Karen start laughing and say something like, oh, I love when that happens, a classic all the time, something like that.
Well, see, and the funny thing is like I wanted them definitely to like slowly turn throughout the course of the movie, and of course we're gonna do the same thing we did in part 2, where it's like I'm getting a really bad feeling of deja vu, man. Like this, I feel like this has happened before.
I love the idea of like trioxin Slurpees.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say
you have more to go.
Yeah, the main like story beats, just like I don't want to get too into it. I want to improv, but like the main story beats, I was thinking of like, so they're not going to know to be able to call the military for this because there's no barrels, there's no information. So this shit just happens. So I figured the main plot would revolve around a group of friends working at the mall, and I'm glad you mentioned the big haired girl because I have a scene with an aerosol flamethrower idea, but so use your can of Aquanet. But yeah, like so.
Well,
so,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
okay.
Because if this is a sequel to Return of the Living Dead or part 2, like if this is our own part 3, well, part 3 came out in 1993. The early 90s, in the early 90s, girls still had like the big hair with the crimping iron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. You would still have all that shit, and like mall culture was at almost still its peak at this point. So it would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured if this was like 1990 or something like that. But yeah, so we'd have this group of friends who are working at the mall, and during the course of the day, we're gonna have weird stuff happening. People getting sick, like kind of running to the bathroom, throwing up, like all that kind of stuff. And eventually, these patrons of the mall will start to turn. So now it's the mall employees versus the patrons in the mall, and like the other survivors in the mall getting bit and turned and all that. But these aren't reanimated corpses. These are freshly turned. So of course they're going to be fast. They're going to be smart. They're going to be, again, like Freddy was in the first movie. So I wanted to have like this whole thing where it's basically about a group of people trying to survive in a mall. So take cues from like Chopping Mall and Dawn of the Dead and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely have some story beats later that I'm like, oh my God, like I have an ending in mind that I kept picturing the whole time I was thinking of this. Like the ending is what came to me first because it's so fucking stupid. And I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, that is the way to go out. So,
oh man.
With the boyfriend's back angle for it, it would be really cool to have like someone that like, maybe is going to meet his girlfriend or whatever. She works there, and like she didn't know that he had a Slurpee. He had a Slurpee real quick, and then he met her over there. So he's feeling himself kind of turning. Maybe he's a like zombie fan or something. So maybe he kind of has a feeling of what's going on, and he's trying to hide the fact that he is slowly turning, and he is going to start craving those brains soon.
Wait.
Well, hang on. No,
yeah, go ahead. You gave me a good idea.
I'm so glad you said that because I was actually about to say something really similar. I was picturing, I love this idea of like this young romance, and so I have this image in my head of this character, like what's her name, Olivia Newton-John from Grease, who's this sort of like new girl in town, or this cheerleader type who's like going out with like the football jock, and she's gonna like go meet him at the mall where he's hanging out with like the other guys in the team or whatever, and she has this like teeny bopper crush on him, and he's like a big man on campus type, but maybe what we do is we see him like there's a movie theater like in the mall, and like they're coming out of the theater and it's like they were seeing the Night of the Living Dead remake or something, you know what I mean, like they were seeing like a horror movie, and he comes out and he's like, oh man, I love those types of movies, whatever, and it'd be this cool character piece where he's really into these horror movies, but he's like the captain of the football team, so the other guys in the team are all just like, I don't know, man, I don't know why you like that shit, man, I don't get it with all that like flesh eating monster stuff, it's like kid stuff, and his girlfriend too just thinks like, oh, you're so silly, but yeah, so he gets a sip off of somebody's Slurpee, or he goes to buy one, has a little sip, and then like one of his like dumb jock friends is playing a joke and knocks it out of his hand, so he only gets a little bit, and then so as the movie goes on, he's like starting to turn, and he's like, I don't know, I'm feeling like kind of weird, like like you guys saw the movie, right? It's like they got all sweaty and pale first, right? Do I look sweaty and pale to you? And and then at some point I just want him to be like the girl Sally or whatever, right? He's like, I don't know, Sally, like it's like I just can't stop thinking, like I don't know, I really want to know what like your skin tastes like, or
your brains. They smell spicy.
and then but she's so oblivious, like I don't know why the name Tom keeps popping up because of Tom Matthews, but she's like, oh Tom, you're so crazy, I love you, you're so silly, like so there's like this thing whenever we see them, it's like he's always like trying to put his arm around her, which she loves, but he's just like he's like sniffing her head,
kind of licks her hair at one point.
And it's just like, stop it, you're gonna mess up my hairspray, you know.
See, now I love this idea, but one of the things that I think would work really well here is we've seen in all three of the first Return of the Living Dead movies somebody start to turn, or you know, they're infected and they don't want to be. Like, they're trying to fight it. So we get in both part 1 and 2, we get Tom Matthews' character like fighting it. We see James Cameron's character actually like kill himself to avoid eating brains. And in part 3, we not only have Julie, but we have Riverman, who retains some of his humanity after being turned. Like, Riverman helps out. What is it, Mark and Julie? I can't remember the guy's name. But he helps them out to escape from that like hellscape of the zombies unleashed in the military complex. So we could even have a scene like when he eventually does start to turn, he could still help them fight back. Like, because he like you said, he only got a little bit of the trioxin. So he's turned, he's a zombie, he wants brains, but he also has his consciousness still. So he's trying to be like, you know, no, I'm going to help you guys. And we're going to have to obviously have some kind of like final fight sequence where it's like the survivors fight against the zombies in the mall. And I don't know if we want to repeat the electricity scene, like do something like have them use the mall's water feature and sprinklers or something to like electrocute all the zombies. But maybe he does something like they have to throw the power, but you know, whoever throws the power is going to get electrocuted. And he's like, you know, I'm one of them, I'll do it. You know, he goes down there and like, you know, maybe grabs the cord and sticks it in the water and electrocutes everyone, including himself. But yeah, we could have something else.
Julie was so clear, so we can definitely go with that. Where, you know, there's no moment in that whole movie where you're really thinking, "Oh, she's a full zombie."
Well, there's the one, when after the sewer fight, where the guy goes to talk when she's eating Riverman, and because I literally just watched it. I went down a rabbit hole of 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, because I keep thinking it's Mark, but I feel like that's a wrong name. But anyway, the guy in part 3, he goes Julie, and she like looks at him and she screeches and goes to run, and then his dad shoots her with the freeze bullet and, you know, freezes her up, and then they cart her off to the complex. But yeah, like literally up to the last 20 minutes of the movie, she controls it, and then again she still controls it afterward when he lets her out of the cage. And you can tell she's like fighting it, but she is fighting it. So, you know, and then of course, you know, they do the whole Romeo and Juliet die together scene. But yeah, no, I love the idea of having a zombie that is trying its best to fight against its natural inclination to eat brains.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just had an idea too, and I'm over here listening to you talk about, you know, this zombie who like doesn't want to be a zombie, and like there's going to be this outbreak, and we got to figure out electricity. Like shit, they could trigger like the sprinklers, like in the ceiling, like part of like the fire alarm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At some point at the end, but I can't help but think, how is there a zombie outbreak at this mall that doesn't just immediately become like a big deal for the whole town, right? People are going to be fleeing out of the mall, leaving, screaming, telling the cops, calling their family. Like, there's got to be a reason.
Maybe it's a smart mall. So somebody like shouted to go into lockdown because they had this security system just installed, and they were like, okay, you know, this is such great security system. If something happens within here, we can keep it contained until we can get help from the outside. So maybe somebody had released that, and then it locked down the mall, keeping everybody else trapped in.
Oh, okay. So I like that, but let me combine it with where I was going. No, that's perfect. So what I was thinking was, we need to like have people be able to leave the mall at the beginning, like some people, without causing a panic. And so what I'm thinking is, what if, and the reason that they were watching like, you know, Night of the Living Dead or whatever in the mall is, what if it's Halloween or Halloween season, and at this mall they're having like, it's like their annual like up all night zombie fest at the mall. The mall stays open late and people go, and it's all decorated for Halloween, and they're playing like Romero movies in like the theater inside the mall. And at some point, like, it's going to be like party time, and they're going to like dim the lights, and the food court's going to have like, you know, like a party or whatever. And it's like this annual event. And so when the outbreak happens, it starts to happen earlier in the day, and it's like people are turning into zombies. Most of the people in the mall just think it's like part of the party. And so even people who like run screaming from the building and they tell the cop, there's gonna be some scene where there's like a woman who comes screaming out of the building like, oh, there's zombies and they're eating people, and the cops can be like, yeah, it's Halloween, and that's
I love that.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
But then to your point, Sam, at some point they lock the mall down. So now it's like some people left. The cops don't care. It's party at the mall, and they kind of forget about it. So when it's like after normal business hours and it's supposed to be the Halloween party, but actually it's a big zombie outbreak and everybody's locked inside.
Okay, wait. I love where you guys are going with this. Okay, so we do exactly what you said about the whole, the people running outside trying to tell the cops, like freaking out, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. So maybe a couple of those survivors do actually escape, and maybe we could even have, some people who drank some of the Slurpee, like, get out. So, leaving open for a sequel. But we could even have it as simple as, like, remember, these are smart zombies. So maybe the security guards get turned and they just lock the gates, locking all their food inside.
I was gonna say that. I was totally gonna say that because he'd have like all the access to the system, so he's kind of been watching,
Yeah, like he could just
kind of
be
figuring
like,
this out.
dinner is served, and like lock.
Yeah. And he's helping his other zombie friends, so he's like, yeah, I'll lock all this dinner and we can have a buffet.
Exactly. So like trick or treat, motherfuckers. Like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh God.
So I got to tell you, the scene that I know we're jumping around, but the scene I had in mind is like after the chaos is happening for a while. So we have our main characters. I don't know how many we want to have, but I need to have like the girl with the big hair, right? So they make their way up to the roof and they're trying to like flag anyone down. And like a couple of zombies get up and like they don't have any really weapons to fight them. So have like this chick pull this giant bottle of Aquanet out of her purse and like a lighter and fucking burn the zombies. So she burns them into a crisp, like, die motherfuckers, like, and they burn up. The smoke goes up into the atmosphere, creates the acid rain, and we just happen to see there's a graveyard not too far away. So it comes down. Nice. So we have this scene where it's like, they beat back most of the zombies. Maybe we go through this whole thing where like they get sports equipment and like, they're breaking zombie legs and shit, like slowing them down. And they get the gates open and like one of the guys runs us and says like, come on guys, we're free. As a fucking zombie tackles him like just out of frame. And then they look and we just see a horde of zombies coming from the direction of the graveyard running at the front doors. So now they have to reclose the gates and you just see the zombies like crash up against the doors, like breaking the glass, and they're like, oh fuck. They run up to hide and the zombies break in. So now like they have a whole new horde of zombies trapping them in the mall, and how do they get out? Which is why I was thinking about using the electrical system to fry it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to take them out. I think the electrical system combined with like the fire retardant, sprinkler system would be a good way to kind of like spread that around at some point.
Right.
And I don't know how this fits in with what you just said, but like I keep thinking of like the send more cops, like send more paramedics line, and you mentioned like getting more zombies from the graveyard, and I was just like, send more zombies. Like we got to fit that line in there somehow. Like one of the smart zombies has to like maybe like all these zombies come. And then like one of the smart zombie security guards like looks at another guy and he points at the graveyard and he's like, yeah, like there aren't enough, and he's like, send more zombies, and so he you see this one guy who like limps off with like a Slurpee in his hand, and it's like,
Nice.
I keep thinking of a skating rink. You know how some malls have like skating rinks in them and stuff, and to get that to melt a little bit would be a good way to translate some of the current too for electricity.
Oh yeah, almost like oh god, it wasn't a skating rink, it was a swimming pool in Chud 2 Bud the Chud, where they get them all in the swimming pool and then they use the stuff. Yeah, but no, the skating rink would be a good idea too. That's why I just immediately pictured gathering a bunch of zombies in a body of water. I thought of Chud.
But like ice skating, I'm thinking, because then you have
That's a great idea, because what we need is we need a plot, obviously, right? So we need something for our human characters, who we probably should like define a few of them, but we need something for our human characters to try to be doing rather than just like screaming in terror. They got to have some kind of a plan, whatever that simple plan is. And so it might be as simple as, hey, there's a skating rink downstairs. If we can get everybody down there, and like we'll turn the power off so it starts to melt, and then like whatever, we'll flip the power back on, and there'll be like a live wire or some kind of a plan. We got to figure out the details. But yeah, so it's like, so they're trying to just figure out what's going on, then they're trying to survive, and then in like that third act it's going to be like, okay, we have to like Pied Piper all these bitches down into the skating rink, so we have to like put some bait down there. We have to find some way to get the whole zombie horde to follow us.
I got it. Okay. All right, I like this. So we do have to define our characters, but so the idea of getting them all in the skating rink, that's a really good idea. So we're gonna have this is an easy way to electrify the whole area. So we have one of them pull a fucking Alien 3, like where it's like they have to run through the mall, like gathering up the zombies, and then like slide across the ice and grab a rope that one of the other ones is like hanging from the rafters. And then we could have one of those like scary moments where the person's trying to climb up the rope, but the zombies are grabbing it and weighing them down. They're like, climb.
Ugh,
And then, like while they're all like on the ice skating rink, maybe this is where we could have like the football zombie, the guy who's slowly turning. He could run over there and like pull the cord and like stick it into the ice and electrocute everybody, maybe even including himself. And so we could think that our heroes would survive. But I have a twist there, so I'm going to save that until we're closer to the end. So we want to get the whole story kind of beat it out here.
Yeah. Okay. So I have an idea for this to make it a little bit more organic, as you mentioned our football captain. So I'm going to call him Scott, just for some kind of a name, right? Scott the Jock. So Scott the Jock, Sally the girlfriend. Just one note characters. For some reason, I don't know why, but we mentioned like big hair and like crimped bangs and hairspray, and I don't know why the name Julie just seems like the perfect name for that character, but it does. But let's just start with Scott the Jock, right? So yeah, let's have, while they're like running around trying to figure out what to do, at some point, our like little group that ends up gathering together of like our main character survivors, like what if they're trying to find a way to turn the security system off so they can get out? So they're looking for like, there's got to be like a control room or like electrical room somewhere, whether we cut the power or there's an emergency exit button. We got to find where that utility room is, and of course it's going to be, I don't know why I keep thinking there's a basement in the mall, but whatever, like wherever the lowest point of the mall would be, because they wouldn't put like a skating rink on like the second floor, so
right.
But what if they go there and they find this like control room, and that's when they're like, wait, where do these like pipes go? Is this the power line? And so they're trying to and that's when they look over, and one of the pipes they're trying to follow, and they look over and they see like the skating rink behind these like glass doors, and that's when one of them gets like the light bulb over their head of like, oh shit, I know what to do, and I think it kind of ties the plot together pretty organically, because it's not like they were looking for a way to kill the zombies. It was just they were trying to save themselves and then realized, hey, there might be a plan here.
Okay.
The security guard could be near that control room, so then we could have the conflict with the smartest zombie that's kind of been leading these other zombies in.
Well, do we still want to do the thing where we have the graveyard, the guy, like we think the heroes are getting out, and then the graveyard zombies attack and then push them back into the mall, and now they're retrapped.
Yeah.
I think we could do that, that can be like the that like rock bottom moment at like in the second act where like everything goes fucking terrible. Like, I'm thinking in the first act of the movie, it's like we introduce our characters, we have the zombie outbreak start, like just a little bit. Some people flee the mall. They tell the cops are like, whatever, it's Halloween, they kind of ignore them. And then the mall closes for like normal business hours, and it's like, hey, it's party time, woohoo, and then of course the outbreak is happening, and maybe a whole bunch of people just get killed and turned like right away, but of course there's some humans, and then that's when the security guards are like, hey, we need more zombies, so we can do the graveyard scene. But then after all this, the new graveyard zombies are in the mall, it's lockdown dinner time, right? And so we can have a sequence where the humans are like, we gotta get out of here, and then they realize they can't leave, and so that for the next half an hour of the movie, it's fuck, how do we get past the security guard with the key? We have to like find some other way to get out of here, and that's why they're looking for like, the control room.
Well, what about this? Like, I still want to do the smoke because that's gonna play into the ending I had in mind.
Sure.
So I want to have like some scene where we establish in this film that if you burn the zombies, it goes up in the atmosphere, creates the rain, and it can create more zombies. So we still could do the fight scene, maybe, and have the zombies, from the graveyard show up. What if we have the second act, like the ending of the second act, is this group makes their way to the security room. They kill the security guard that's been, keeping everything closed. They see the skating rink. Maybe this is where they take notice of it. They open the gates. Okay. They go out. We have the scene where, like, we're free, guys. We have the guy get tackled.
Oh, sure.
Freaking out of frame. We're like, oh shit, more zombies, and they have to run back in. Now they're trapped once again, and now where they're thinking is like, we have to stop them. We can't escape. How do we stop them? And then maybe that's when we have the person being like, hey, the skating rink, and then we do that whole thing. Yeah. But I was thinking character-wise, I just dropped my pen. Character-wise, okay, you said Scott the jock, Sally the girlfriend, Julie the punk. We got Tom the janitor and James the janitor. I've just named them after themselves. They, obviously they're going to have some hijinks, and of course they'll turn and turn on the group because that's what happens to these two. What about like we need like a little squirrely nerd character, so maybe like Eddie the nerd. I don't know why Eddie's the first name that popped into.
I was thinking, and he can be like a lifelong friend of Scott. But he kind of is like his secret friend, that they had like, some stuff in common. They enjoyed movies together, but Scott didn't want him hanging around with his jock friends. So they kind of have like this long friendship, but it's not recent. But now they're stuck in this situation to see where they do work well together.
I like that. Okay, so we could have like Eddie works at like a Games Workshop type thing. Maybe they were like old school D&D buddies, but it's like Scott doesn't want to show his friends he like D&D, so
so like they're friends when they were kids, and maybe we meet Eddie before we meet Scott the jock, and then in the sequence where we meet Scott, he's coming out of the movie theater after having seen like a showing of Night of the Living Dead or whatever, and he and his like jock friends are like making fun of the movie, and you can tell he secretly kind of likes it, and maybe Eddie runs up and is like, oh Scott, I can't believe you watched it, we haven't seen the movie since we were kids, and then Scott's like, shut up nerd, and like pushes him away, but like he secretly looks at him like, I'm sorry, like with his eyes, he's like, where he's like, and you kind of get this the drama where that like he still kind of wants to be friends with Eddie, but he can't do it in front of like the football team, they'll think he's a nerd, and so there has to be some tension between the two, but maybe Eddie, he's like mad, but it's Eddie should be the one who figures out about the Slurpee problem, like he's got to be the guy, right?
So,
and then eventually at the end we have to have a heartfelt moment where like before Scott the jock, if he does get taken out, in the big action sequence, the big climax where he takes out the zombies, it's got to be Eddie who like helps him do it, and they have a last moment where they're like, you'll always be my mage, you'll always be my warrior or whatever,
You'll always be my DM.
yeah.
I love this idea. So we have like Scott, like I said, he's gonna go down and do the electricity thing, but maybe he's like, because he's the big jock, he's like, I'm the one that's gonna do it, I gotta do it. And Eddie points out, Scott, they're not gonna go after you, you're one of them. He's like, it has to be me. And he's like, but dude, you can't run, you got asthma. And he's like, it's gotta be me, like something like that. So we have this whole moment of like the heartfelt goodbye. And like Eddie the nerd is the one that's like running through the halls, like deking out the zombies, like sliding under benches and shit because he's so squirrely and small. And then like he gets to the rope and like starts climbing up it as Scott like grabs the the power cord, rips it out of the wall and like shoves it into the ice to fry all the zombies at the end. So I like that idea of the best friend angle, Sam. That was really good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think we should have one of Scott's jock buddies too, but kill him off quick.
Oh yeah, let's have the Dwayne.
Dwayne, who's like the he's one of the football guys on the team. He's gonna be a named character who has like some lines, but like he'll get killed. But like I was gonna say, when Eddie's doing the running earlier, I wanted to mention it's got to be the football team that's chasing him at like the head of the crowd of zombies, and it's like, so Eddie gets to prove he's like, fuck you guys, I've been running away from you my whole life.
Right. Oh, dude. Okay, so we have like Scott and Dwayne are the only two on the football team that don't get like don't get turned immediately. Like Scott gets turned a little bit, and obviously he's fighting it. Maybe Dwayne doesn't have a Slurpee. Maybe he's doing one of those things where he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you guys eat that crap." Type of like
he's the one that hit the drink because remember just gonna have Scott take the sip. So maybe he's the one that hit it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So because I was picturing the scene where like two like the stupid football jocks are, they're like playing out a scene or like a football play like in the mall coming out of the movie. Like, man, if I saw those zombies, I would have just been like, hut one, hut two, and like tackled those bitches, and they acted out. And then like while they're roughhousing, like somebody bumps into Scott after he takes like one sip of the Slurpee and it splashes, and maybe it splashes into Dwayne, and Dwayne gets pissed and throws his Slurpee at his buddies and like hits one of them in the face, and that's why he doesn't drink any of it, because he got pissed and threw it.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yep.
So we have, I think Dwayne should be the one, like maybe he's like a real asshole to everybody in the group like the whole time, but he should be the one that gets tackled by the new horde, where it's like he's like, "We're free, guys, we made it," and then just suddenly like zombies like nope, it just takes him out of panel.
Fuck yeah.
Oh man. So okay, so we need some more ladies in here. We only have Sally and Julie. We need like, okay, so it's the early 90s. We have a punk. We have like the what's her name? Oh my God, the prim and proper girl from the first one. We have like Sally is the perfect name for her, but like, the perfect jock girlfriend type. So we need like either a goth chick or like a band geek or something like that.
I was gonna say we're horror loving girl.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I feel like Julie would probably be the horror chick too.
Yeah, because she's like the punk with like the big hairspray.
Yeah,
she's gonna have like she's like fishnets and like spiked bracelets on,
Or the book nerd, like a bookworm.
Yeah, we could have. Oh, okay, yeah. So we could have her like tossing out ideas. Mm-hmm. Like we could. Okay, yeah. We'll have the little bookworm. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I got one. The bookworm, and then you have to have like the stoner chick, and the two of them, they work at whatever like store in the food court is selling the Slurpees, and they're like the bored clerks who were like, oh fuck, all night long with the fucking Slurpees and the fucking jocks, and all they do is roll their eyes while the one has a book in front of her face, and the other one is just like staring at her like dreadlock boyfriend, like wishing she could go get high, behind the dumpsters.
Yep, and they don't have the Slurpees because they're so sick of them that they won't even drink them anymore.
Perfect. That's perfect. Well, okay, so what about Patty and Marcy?
Works for me.
All right, so Patty is the stoner and Marcy is the bookworm. I immediately just thought of Peanuts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why not? But yeah, no, I think this is a pretty good. We don't want to have too many characters. I mean, we'll have more, but they'll be like characters we meet for like a second, and then they get eaten. But like guys, actors who have like one line in the movie before they're zombie fodder. But I think this is pretty good for like a core group of like survivors.
Oh yeah, because we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we got 9, but we know Tom and James are going to get taken out quick because we're going to do the whole joke of the deja vu and blah blah blah, and then they turn and attack the group. So they're just basically kind of like tag-alongs. And then we know Dwayne's going to get taken out. So really, we have Scott, Sally, Eddie, Patty, and Marcy. Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, Sally, Julie, Eddie, Patty, and Marcy as like the main players, and of course, some are going to get killed.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
But we do want to have like at the end, we do want to have like a group of survivors for the little joke I have.
Okay, so we know that Scott's not going to survive. We know that Dwayne's not going to survive. Sally probably shouldn't survive because she's stupid. Julie maybe. Eddie.
I think Julie should survive.
Okay, so Julie, Eddie, Patty, and Marcy could survive. I mean, we can maybe kill one of like the bored clerks, but so I'm thinking like stereotypical like 80s movies. Okay, so the two stereotypes that are in like every 80s movie that we haven't mentioned are, there's either the kid who's way younger than everybody else but like way too grown up for his age, like the 12-year-old potty mouth who hangs out with like the teenagers, and then the other one is like there's got to be like a fat kid that everybody calls by some stereotypical rude like big guy name, what I mean?
Chubs.
Yeah, Chubs. There's always Chubs and Fat Kid and Chunk and what I mean? Like there's got to be, those are the guys. And I think it would be funny if we ended up killing the little kid, because it'd be like, oh fuck, they killed the kid. But then I think that like the big dude should definitely survive, because he'd be like Chubbs from Teen Wolf, who like don't put up with no bullshit.
Right. Okay. So what if we kind of combine the idea, we have both of those kids. So they're not friends with the older crowd. Maybe they're just like two other kids that are like there for the Halloween thing. They want to see the movie and they get wrapped up in this, and they're just two more survivors that end up with the group. Mm-hmm. But we should have the one kid, the little like loudmouth guy, be like this like little skateboarder punk. So we could have him like skateboarding through the mall early on, like you saw in every early 90s film. Where there's always the little hooligan on the skateboard in the mall.
Exactly. And I always picture that kid who hides under the bed in Friday the 13th Part 6, who's always like, so what were you going to be when you grew up? You know what I mean? That guy.
Exactly. So we could have the two of them, and like the chubby kid, we'll have him survive. So what's a chubby kid name that hasn't been used? We got Chunk, Fat Kid, and Chubbs. So
I don't know. There's like lard ass Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bitch tits.
Well, Bitch Tits would actually be really funny, especially if his friend is like the stupid skater kid with the potty mouth at 12 years old. Like, yeah, he would definitely call his friend Bitch Tits. And through the whole movie, every time he says it, every fucking time, like Bitch Tits hits him in the shoulder, and he's like, my name is Clarence, motherfucker. Like every time,
Yes, Clarence. That's perfect. Oh, and we need the little skater kid's name. So we got Bitch Tits, aka Clarence.
He's gotta have some name that's like really stands out. Like he's from California and his parents moved there for a job and he's like too cool for school. You know what I mean? And he's gotta have some stereotypical like surfer dude name.
Let's name him Summer.
Summer? Yes. Yeah. Summer Skater Kid. I'm just making a list of all of our characters so I can keep it right.
Maybe he could even be Patty's boyfriend.
Oh, so make him maybe a little bit older. So maybe like a 15-year-old-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And maybe Bitch Tits is like the 12-year-old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Patty can be a little bit younger too, right? And it'd be funny too if his name is really Summer, but he like really wants everybody to call him like the Edge or something. And so like
Raven,
yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh yeah. So the whole movie, like he calls Clarence. He's like, so he'd be like, hey, Bitch Tits, check it out. There's your girlfriend, whatever. And then he's like, Bitch Tits will hit him, and he's like, I told you my name's Clarence, motherfucker, every time. And then at some other time, like Bitch Tits will be like, hey, Summer, check it out. Look at the zombies. And he's like, I told you, call me Raven.
I love it. That's awesome. Oh shit. Okay, so we got our cast here. I think it's a pretty good cast too. We got quite a few different types of characters. So we do the opening. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the story. So we do the opening with the janitors finding the gunk, and like, or maybe we like open it with them walking up to the manager and telling them there's some horrible down in the basement, like coming up from the sewer drains. And he's like, it's called shit, clean it up, dumbass, something like that. Right. So they go down there. We have our little poo fight, our little zombified poo fight. Ends up in the Slurpee machine. We get the opening credit montage, kind of like where we follow the smoke, the trioxin smoke in the first Return of the Living Dead as it goes up through the vents, and we're getting the opening credits, but we're seeing people drinking the Slurpees. And we do the scene that you had said earlier with the maybe it wasn't Julie that had the finger in the Slurpee. We have some other girl with the finger in the Slurpee and be like, ew, and like do that whole thing and lick it like you said, Sam. Have all that shit. So we do all of that in the opening montage.
So as the montage music like fades out, we start to have our characters that we know. They get introduced like in groups. Scott comes out of the movie theater with the football team, and Sally walks up, and then you see like Summer and Bitch Tits, like their mom drops them off, and they say something about like oh, you're here to see Patty, your girlfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we see Patty and Marcy like just Slurpee after Slurpee after Slurpee, like rolling their eyes, and we get that we kind of pan around the mall as we get to meet everybody.
Yeah, and we could have like we see maybe like Eddie is I don't know if we want to have him in the workshop. Like maybe he's working in like a Spencer's or something instead. And then we have like him and Julie talking. Like maybe she's like, "How much is this?" You know, one of those types of things. So we can kind of focus in the first 5 minutes of each of our character groups. So once we get into the actual infected story, we don't got to introduce anybody. Like we've already done that in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and for some reason you mentioned Spencer's, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I pictured Eddie wearing like 3D glasses for no reason, just because he thinks it looks cool, you know?
Oh yeah, of course
Yeah.
he would.
and I love that with Julie. Like she picks up this like spiked bracelet or like dog collar, exactly, like asks like like that's perfect. Like how much is this thing?
Yeah.
And Eddie's like, for you, darling, $6.99. Well, that's what it says on the tag. Exactly.
We could even have Marcy even like seeing something kind of in the giant slushy, tub, and then Patty just being like, whatever, and then just keep on like serving them because they're so busy,
Mm-hmm. And they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, we can have her being like putting the whatever, the tub of syrup or whatever, hooking it up, and when she first like starts sending it through the Slurpee machine, we see it's kind of like this blackish green color, and she's like, "Is it supposed to look like that?" And then the other one's like, whatever, just keep it coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forget. I don't know which one it is, Patty or Marcy. One of them, like they're up on like a step ladder, and they open up the package of the syrup, and it just comes glopping out, and they're gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe people drink this shit, Exactly, right? And it's like chunky, exactly. And she says that like it's supposed to be that color, of course, and then the other one, Marcy with the bookworm, the book in front of her face, and she's just like, whatever, hurry up, we have a whole line over here.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to have so after we see the infected, we're gonna have to start having the sequences where the outbreak happens.
Yeah.
So we do the whole thing with the movie theater, like you said, like introducing all the characters. So we got our characters, and maybe they're even talking about like, hey, are you gonna stick around for like the party afterward? But like we introduced the idea of the reason that this mall is so populated so late is because they're gonna have like this big party at the mall, their annual Halloween party. And maybe we even have something like a band, or like there's like live music gonna start at midnight type of thing. Mm-hmm. So we introduce to the viewers, the reason that everyone is here is for this crazy ass party. And then maybe people are getting a little out of hand, and people start to think like, well, people are getting a little rowdy right now. Like there's, no one's serving alcohol, are they? Like one of those kind of things. And then next thing you know, they're fucking attacking everybody, and chaos ensues like in the first half hour of the film.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, I love this. Yeah, there's definitely got to be like a band setting up, right? And like Julie is just hanging out, like giving moon eyes at like the dude playing the guitar, or whatever, right? And like, so they start playing this like really like stereotypical like corny music that was clearly written for the film, but it's supposed to be like some cool rock song, right? The band starts, and so then you have this like cool like background music. And then at some people start to get kind of agitated, and they're almost like moshing a little bit. But it's like the music they're playing is like they sound like Duran Duran. It's like why aren't people like moshing? It's like, and you see the band getting a little nervous, and the crowd's getting bigger. And then we pan around, we see comments of other people going, oh, it's getting kind of crazy in here. Fucking kids on Halloween. And but then I don't know why I'm picturing this. I'm picturing some guy like crazy like blank faced looking dude who's like just turned, and he's like walks up to like the guitar guy, and he's like almost like headbanging to the music. He's getting closer and closer, and the guitar guy with like the fucking like spiked bleached mullet is like, yeah, rock and roll, and right. And then the dude who's like coming up on him, he's like, he just grabs motherfucker's like mullet head and just bites into the top of his skull like David in the Lost Boys at like the beach party, right? And like blood just goes squirting. And that's when you see Julie on the side, who is just like, oh my god, what the fuck, and like freaks out. And that's when she like goes and runs and like hides, and that's how she survives, because we find her later on, like she's not like hiding, but she's like under a table somewhere with like a can of hairspray and a lighter, just like waiting like for this shit to blow over until she has to like join the party.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we have the outbreak happens, and it happens quick. Like people are turning, people are fighting. So we definitely want to have our group gather up. So maybe it's something as simple as like people are like we can focus on Dwayne, Scott, and Sally, and they're like running trying to find a place to hide. Maybe they just literally jump over the counter of the Slurpee counter and like duck behind the counter, and we already see like Patty and Marcy and Bitch Tits and Summer all crouched down behind there like, what the fuck is going on over there?
One of them like looks over the counter like just to kind of see and peek, and that's when they see Julie like under a table in the food court, and they're just like, come on quick, and like, what I mean, that way she can kind of get over there. There's got to be this thing where you mentioned did they go on the roof, Mike? You wanted to do right?
So there's got to like flag people down.
Okay, so this is
especially
perfect.
If they're in a food court, it's got to be close, that door.
Right.
Yeah, but this is perfect because like, one of the girls who works there will know that like they can get out through like the ventilation hood above like the deep fryer or whatever fucking restaurant or whatever they're working in. Like there's got to be so they're gonna go up through the ceiling and that's how they're gonna try to like get out onto the roof.
Okay, so here we go. So yeah, maybe like you said, Sam, it's gonna be near the front doors. So maybe they're making a plan. Like they're like, okay, we got to get out. And then we cut to they're looking at the doors. And we see some zombies kind of straggling around, maybe eating some people. And they're like trying to figure out if they can make a beeline for the exit. And then we cut to the zombified security guard. Like where we cut to a scene, we see a Slurpee getting set down on a desk. And then it turns around and we see the zombified security guard, look down and hit the gate close button. And then the gates start to roll down and close over the exits. And then he just mumbles. He's like, dinner is served. Something like that. And then they're like, oh, shit, we're trapped. And yeah, now they got to figure out a way to get out. So they think going through the vents, like you said, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You mentioned the gates coming down, and I'm picturing like, those gates that come down in front of the stores, or there's like a security like barrier that comes down in front of like the glass doors to the outside. And so our group is hiding, like they're in the food court, they can see it, but it's kind of far away, but they don't make a run for the doors because as the gates are coming down and they're getting nervous, they see a bunch of other humans who are running and they start running at the barrier, trying to get out, trying to go underneath it. But I'm just picturing a couple of dudes who try to like slide under it, like, like they're going to slide into home base or whatever.
Yeah.
And the fucking gate comes down on top of them on their midsections. And then the zombies just like rip them in half from like both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Resident Evil 2 that's just like that, where this guy's trying to like get out from under a security gate and you're pulling him and then he starts screaming and the zombies rip him in half from the other side. It's freaking awesome. So the idea of the security gates, like, okay, so we have the security gates closing. Now remember, we haven't found Eddie yet. Like we haven't seen him in the group. So what if Eddie is like, when all the shit breaks down, like he drops down behind the counter at Spencer's, but there's zombies in the store. So he's like hiding and he's like, what the fuck do I do? And we could see like, and the security gates close. They trap the zombies in the store with him because all the stores, the gates come down.
That's right.
And now he has to find a way to get out of this room. So we could have this very tense moment where like Eddie is like hucking, those cheap dildos that Spencer sells, and, like hitting him with like inflatable flamingos and shit. Like, get away from me.
And maybe that's when he sees the vent.
Yeah, exactly. So we can do this whole joke where we have the group with Scott and Dwayne and Patty and Marcy and all them. We could have them climb up into the ceiling down in the food court to like follow the ventilation system up to the roof. And then Eddie is doing the same thing from Spencer's. So when we first get them up to the up to the roof, they're like, okay, like, can anyone see like any area that we can flag somebody down? And then like have another vent pop open and Eddie like, pop out and scare the shit out of everyone. So we could have like the fake out scare, be like, fucking Ed, what the hell? Or like Dwayne be like, fuck you, fucking nerd, and then turn around and two zombies are popping up out of another vent. And that's when we do the whole like flamethrower scene where Julie's like, fuck, it just burns them.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, and Eddie has to like dive out of the way so he doesn't get engulfed in like
right.
Aquanet like flamethrower spray.
Well, see, and we could do two things here because number one, we're going to show that Eddie is a lot quicker and more agile than we would think with him being a little nerd. And number two, we do the fake out scare, which is kind of a necessary thing in most horror movies where we're like, oh no, it's just a cat. Oh no, it's really Jason. Like one of those types of things. So it's it's just the nerd. Oh shit, there's really zombies.
And maybe we could have, like, when he pops out, Scott accidentally, like, punch him since he popped out, and then that's where we can see that there's something there with them.
Oh yeah.
Like, we already saw something earlier kind of at the theater, but now we're seeing again, like, okay, they kind of know each other more than we think.
Maybe we could even have, like, when they're all, like, after they burn the zombies and they can't get any help, like, they're sitting up on the roof, like, what the fuck do we do? You know, maybe we could have a quiet moment where, like, Scott and Eddie are sitting there. Maybe like Eddie's like shoving Kleenex up his nose because it's bloody, and have Scott be like, I'm really sorry, man. You know, and then we have this, like, tender moment of, like, them talking about the way things used to be, like, why did high school have to confuse everything, you know, that type of thing.
So they have a little heartfelt moment, but then Dwayne has to, like, walk over he's all agitated and, like, pacing back and forth, and he, like, walks over and he's all like, why are you talking to this nerd? He fucking let all these zombies up here. We're stuck up here because of this guy, you know?
Right.
And then, of course, Scott has to, like, come to his defense, and they have a little tiff. They push each other, and it's just like, all right, later, we get down from this, you and I, you know, we're going to go toe to toe, but, like, later, you know? And it's like, it's just going to cause this tension.
Right.
So, but now I'm stuck because I'm like, okay, so our characters are on the roof, and we know that we want to have a sequence where they're going to open the security system. They think they're going to be able to get out, but they obviously here come, like, the graveyard zombies. So I don't know how to connect those two. Right.
I got it. So here's what we do. So we do the whole thing with the burnt zombies. The smoke goes up, creates the acid rain. So they're gonna need to get out of the rain because it hurts. It's
there you
acid
go.
rain. So have them, like, rush back into, like, maybe the roof access, like, you know, would lead down to some kind of, like, the corridors behind the stores in the mall. Mm-hmm. You know, we'd have the roof access stairway that leads down there. So have them, like, rush in there, and maybe they're looking down the stairway, like, are there any zombies down there? And have them trying to figure out what to do. And maybe we'll have, like, I don't know, maybe Patty, the stoner girl, is like, we gotta get to the security room to unlock the gates. And have them be like, fuck yeah, you're right. And then they realize that they're in the back corridors. They need to get down to the basement. Maybe this is where we could have, like, Tom and James, because we haven't really had them do anything. Have them just be like, we could show you where it is, but they're getting bad. Like, they're looking really fucked up at this point.
Oh, so I had this funny idea. So I gotta jump in right here. So
go for it.
I love it. So the roof, they find a door, for the roof access. They don't want to go back in the mall, but like you said, like, the rain's coming, so they're gonna. And not only does it hurt, but maybe it's like a flash storm, like, out of nowhere, and it just literally hurts, whether it was acid or not, because it's just, you know. And we have those down here in Texas where it's like, out of a clear blue sky, it's like a fucking hurricane for 20 minutes, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so that would also make the graveyard contamination happen a lot faster, because the whole ground would be completely soaked in like a half an hour, right? Mm-hmm. So this flash freak storm comes out, and maybe earlier we see these ominous scenes of the mall, like when, like, they dim the lights and, like, people are leaving for the day, the party starts, and you see, like, a little bit of lightning in the sky, just a little bit, you know what I mean? And so this way, later on when the storm starts, it's not a big surprise. Anyway, so they get back inside, like you said, they go into those like corridors behind the stores, and they're kind of like, you know, peeking out, looking this way, looking that way. They're like, oh, the coast is clear. But then you just see this girl, so she smashes out of one of these doors that's, like, behind the stores, and because it's an 80s horror movie, there's got to be at least one set of tits. So this girl, like, this, like, dumb blonde looking, you know, cheerleader type, busts out of the back of the store, and she's topless, and she's, like, trying to cover herself with, like, a dress that's, like, on a hanger in, like, her underwear and socks, while she just runs away. And then, like, a whole bunch of zombies pile, like, maybe 3 or 4 zombies pile through the hole in the wall, or through the door in the wall, and they chase after her. And then, like, the rest of our group is staring after this, like, you know, poor topless girl being chased by zombies, and they're like, what the hell was that? And then you hear this voice from, like, behind him say, she was in the changing room. And then you turn, like, oh fuck, and you turn, and it's like James and Tom.
Okay, so James and Tom have been, like, hiding out in the back the entire time.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen them since the beginning, so it'd be like a big surprise. Like, oh fuck, you guys are still alive.
Right, and they look awful at this point. But one thing I wanted to bring up that we didn't bring up yet is, because this is going to be, like, around midnight, it's going to be like the late thing. We could have early in the movie where, like, people are in costumes and, like, you know, rough housing and stuff as the band is setting up. Maybe, like, a couple of people. This is where we have the scene where people leave that aren't infected. they walk out and they're like, you should see what's going on in there, like talking to the cops, and be like, yeah, it's Halloween. What do you expect? Like they write it off.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe right off the bat, when the outbreak happens, we have like, Scott or Patty or Marcy, somebody tries to call the cops. They're like, there's zombies everywhere. They're in the mall. They're killing people. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, buddy. We know you do this every year. Click. And they hang it up.
Yep.
So the cops aren't going to help them.
Nope.
So I just wanted to backtrack.
Even the cops
and put that
saying,
in there.
I've seen this movie.
Yeah,
exactly.
Being like, oh yeah, no, I've seen this movie.
Exactly.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay,
Oh, shit.
so now we have Scott, Dwayne, Sally, Julie, right?
Yep.
Eddie, either Patty and Marcy, or maybe just one of them at this point. And then now, so that's a pretty big group to kind of start off, right? And so we're probably maybe halfway through the movie at this point. And we're gonna have to start taking people out now. I don't remind me. Do we have Summer and Bitch Tits in this group, or are they still okay? So that's a pretty big group of people.
I'm thinking maybe we lost somebody on the roof at least.
Yeah, we could maybe okay. So yeah, because that would explain why Dwayne is so mad at Eddie. How about this? How about we have maybe Summer, the skater kid, gets killed. So we have like or I don't know if I want to kill him just yet. But anyway, we need somebody to die.
I feel bad, but I feel like Patty and Marcy are the characters that have like the least personality developed so far. Like we have pretty good roles for everybody else, and Patty and Marcy are just kind of like the bored, fast food clerks. So yeah, I think Patty can probably go.
Okay, so what we do here is we have like I said, the fake jump scare where Eddie comes up and they're like, what the fuck, dude? And then we have the real jump scare where another vent busts open and the zombie jumps out and starts to kill Patty, like just tackles her and starts eating her brain.
Or she was just sitting down and he like jumps up behind her and grabs her like Jason at the end of Friday the 13th,
Right. And then that's when we do the whole flamethrower sequence and yada. I'm gonna cross Patty off the list. So she's dead by the time we get down into the basement where we meet Tom and James and we see the whole like naked girl sequence and all that. So now
the rain can hit right with her death too. Like as soon as she dies, that's when our rain starts hitting, and they're like, "Shit, we got to get off the roof. We can't think about this,"
Yeah. So no, because it wouldn't make sense because they got to burn them.
Yeah,
she has to create
and we have to have a little heartfelt moment between like Eddie and Scott. And Dwayne come over in the fight. Yeah, so but maybe there's like maybe not a jump scare, but there's another scare where like they start hearing zombies bashing at like the roof vents or whatever, and so they jump up and they're like, oh fuck, like what are we gonna do? And then they hear thunder and they all look up at once, like kind of this comical stare, like what the fuck else is gonna happen? Like even God hates us,
right.
like whatever. And then that's when like it starts pouring and they're just like, fuck, we gotta get out of the rain. Yeah, so they all run inside, and then we have that little musical moment where like we follow a rivulet of like rainwater off the roof and like across the parking lot and like down into like the ditch on the side of the parking lot across the street, and it's like, and then like this car drives by and lights up like the whatever memorial cemetery sign, so the audience is like, fuck.
Yeah
it's like just across the highway, there's a graveyard. So we get him down in the basement. And maybe like I said, we see Tom and James. They look fucking awful at this point. So the audience clearly knows, oh, it's James Karen and Tom Matthews. They're turning again. We do our whole deja vu. This has happened before moment, yada yada. But we talk about how they have to get into the security room to unlock the gates. So they get in, they fight off the security guard zombies. Maybe it's something like that we see in a lot of Return of the Living Dead movies. Like maybe Scott or Dwayne, one of them has like a piece of sports equipment, so like a baseball bat or something. And we do the thing where it's like, I'm gonna fucking break his neck, and we get in and he just beats the shit out of the zombie with a baseball bat, where he's incapacitated, but he's still alive. So the zombie's like still twitching. He's like, bang. They're like, shut the fuck up, and like stomping him while they're like trying to open the gates. So they get the gates open, and maybe as soon as they get the gates open, we have a scene where it's like either Tom or James is like, oh man, I haven't had anything to eat all day. I think that might be what's wrong with me. I really want some brains. And then have them be like, what? And then they look at the survivors, and now they've turned. So we have to fight our way out of the security room and lock those two fools in there.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. He says brains like it's so nonchalant, like he said sandwich, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I really could go for some brains, you know? So we have, so we get rid of them by locking them in the security guard office. Maybe they could even take somebody out. So who should we kill here? Maybe Dwayne. Or no, Dwayne's gonna get tackled.
Yeah, Dwayne's gonna get attacked. I think maybe Sally the girlfriend, because at this point, like honestly, like at this point, I think Eddie and Scott secretly have like a crush on each other, and Sally's just like hanging on, you know, like she's just the trophy cheerleader girlfriend. Like she's got to go at this point. She served her purpose.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So she gets trapped in the room with Tom and James because like they bite her and they're like, "Fuck, get out." They close the doors and we see like maybe them just like eating her, as the door gets closed. So they get up to the main floor, the first floor, and we see like the zombies milling about, and they got a straight shot to the now open doors. So they're like, okay, we got to make it. And like maybe Eddie and Julie are sitting there like, no, we got to be smart about this. Like if they see us, we're fucked. And then Dwayne's like, fuck that, I can take him. And he like runs, starts running out. He gets the door open. And he's like, come on, guys, we're home free. And that's when we see the zombie tackle him. And he opened the doors, and then they look up and they see all of the zombies come running in out of the rain. So they're just like, fuck. So now they're really trapped.
Yeah, I love it. Okay,
so that could be kind of like where Act 2 would kind of crescendo,
Yeah, I think so, and that's perfect. Yeah, because this is like Act 2 has to end with your rock bottom, like everything sucks moment. So because you have to be asking yourself like, how the fuck are they gonna get out of this, right? Mm-hmm. So we took out Patty, Sally, and Dwayne, and then a bunch of like random characters. And are we gonna see James and Tom again?
I mean, I'm sure we could do some kind of joke with them, but they're trapped in the security office down in the basement.
Yeah, so we might
probably just leave it in the background.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it'd be funny if like, oh, dude, there should be like a total stinger at the end of the movie where like all the zombies are dead, like the credits roll, and then there's a stinger where like we just pan and we see them sitting in the security office, like each leaning up against a wall, like maybe one guy's like James is like picking his teeth with like a sliver of bone or something, and they're like, so like what time does the mall open again?
Yeah. We'll save them for the after credits. I like that.
Oh man. Shit. So go on.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. Going into Act 3, we have Scott, Julie, Eddie, Marcy, and then we still have Summer and Bitch Tits, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we've killed everybody's girlfriends because Summer was dating Patty and she's dead, and Scott was dating Sally and she's dead.
Well, Eddie's still there, so there's.
I was gonna say, I think we're implying that Bitch Tits and Summer are an item, and Eddie and Scott are an item.
Yeah, but we can't say anything because it was the 80s. But yeah,
exactly.
They're just real close friends. Close friends.
They're just really close.
Real close. Really close.
Okay, so now they're where did we leave off with them? So we know that they couldn't get out. The doors are shut. All the graveyard zombies are in the mall. We definitely should see some sequences of like just random other people who were in the mall just getting fucking slaughtered, right?
Oh yeah.
So then when Act 3 starts up, we have to like see our group huddled up, hiding somewhere again, like they were earlier in the restaurant. And now they're trying to like, okay, they got to regroup and come up with like, what's the next plan? We tried to escape. So now what do we do?
I'm sorry, when you said the montage of people getting fucked up, I just pictured a scene and I can't stop laughing at it. Is we have some guy on the down escalator trying to run up as zombies are on the other side, and like so he's just like, oh no, what do I do? There's like zombies trying to get up but they can't because it's coming down.
We need an arcade area too, where zombies are like playing with body parts in the arcade, like a pinball machine with eyeballs or something.
Oh yeah, fucking air hockey.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, fucking air hockey with like a severed hand, and they're just like pucking it back and forth.
Oh, dude. I gotta go back, dude. I was thinking about the guy on the elevator. Holy shit, dude. Picture Krue Gulager, who's just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. I'm kind of stuck. Hello, can someone,
Can somebody help me?
I was like, I don't know if I can get off of this thing. Hello, is anyone here?
And he's just literally like running in place because the zombies can't get him there.
It's just like this cool, little cameo, right, where he just plays this very like indecisive, like, dad who was like at the mall with his family, and now he's like not sure what he doesn't know how to get off the escalator. He's not sure what to do.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my god. But yeah, like I love the idea of the montage scene because you got to have that. It's traditional in every zombie movie. You not only have the feasting montage, but like the zombie horde causing destruction. So we see in the mall like the stragglers, maybe like people were hiding out in the bathroom or hiding out like in the water feature or something, like hiding out in the bushes around the water feature, and zombies are just killing people left and right. Maybe we can even see like a dude like hanging on to one of the light fixtures over the food court, and the zombies are just like stacking chairs to kind of get up to him.
We need an exercise room too, because how like fascinated the zombies were with the exercise video in the second movie. They loved it.
Oh yeah, it's the 80s. There's like a jazzercise store or something, right? Yeah.
Oh man, zombie leading a jazzercise.
Oh man, you mentioned you mentioned the bathroom, and all I could think about was like I pictured these like two ladies who like rush into like the bathroom, to like escape or whatever, and they're freaking out, and then the one just can't help but like check her eye makeup or something, and then whatever, and then like they hear something like splatter on the ground. You look over, and like in one of the stalls, there's like a Slurpee cup that just got fell and like rolled out, and then of course they look at each other, and then the door opens, and some guy or some woman like runs out with like their pants around their ankles, but like all zombified.
Drinking a Slurpee on the can. Oh shit, that's all amazing.
These like. And we can use up some of the time here because honestly, like there's not a lot of story left for our main characters, and so like what we have left here is now we get to have some fun as filmmakers. Like we have to have some cool death scenes, have a bunch of like zombie hordes. This is where you bring in all of your best friends and cousins to be the extras and put them in like the zombie makeup and have them running around and just having a good time.
Exactly. So maybe maybe during this sequence, this is where, like, Eddie or whoever is going to take notice of the ice skating rink, because maybe we even see something like somebody trying to escape the zombies on the ice. So they're like running and falling, and there's just zombies coming in from all sides of the ice skating rink, like brains, or they're falling, and we could have this whole comical sequence of like them trying to get to them, and eventually dogpiling on the guy, like rushing and getting him. But maybe could take notice of the ice skating rink, or at least even something as simple as showing the viewer, hey, there's an ice skating rink in this mall. So when they bring it up later, it's not like so out of left field. You just sort of see it. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Or maybe even some of the people earlier could be like, oh, I just came from the rink. Like,
right.
Maybe that's, or one of them were.
Yeah, we want to have some sequence, like some kind of, whether it be like early on in the establishing shots of the mall, like where they're kind of going around like we're doing our montage, or in like the zombie feasting and attacking sequence. We need to definitely show that ice skating rink so it's fresh in the viewer's mind of like, when they bring up like, okay, we got to gather them all on the rink, like because they won't be. That's the other good thing is they won't be able to get away easily because they'll be slipping and sliding. You know.
But we do have to have a sequence though where we have a small group of people who were like fighting off the zombies with like the blades on their ice skates,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so something I think that would be fucking hilarious in this sequence is to have like our group, maybe they're just kind of like they're kind of hiding and watching all this chaos, trying to figure out what the hell to do. And we see like this group of like middle-aged survivalist type men come out of like the sporting goods store or like the camp store, whatever, like some kind of like, like an outdoorsman's type store. They got like camo and like fucking army face paint on, and they got like machetes and hatchets, and they're like, we're getting out of here, and then immediately get fucking killed. Like,
Yeah.
just have them like, it looks like these fucking like middle-aged Rambo badasses, and they just get wiped out instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They all come out with like hunting rifles and shit, and they're just like, time to go home, boys. And they go to pull the rifles up, but there's so many zombies in the mall. There's like the zombies just like grab the barrels of the rifles, and then every one of these guys just panics because they're like, I didn't think past raising the rifle. Like you know what I mean? Like they have no survival instinct beyond fuck. I can't shoot this thing. Like,
it should be like a bachelorette party that takes them out. Like they happen to like stop at the mall before they got into their limo, and they just totally take those guys out.
Fucking weekend warrior types,
Yeah. I love that.
I love it.
Yeah, the bachelorette party, and then like you see them all taking them out, and then like here comes the bride.
Yeah, like the other bachelorettes are like they're holding down, or the other girls are holding down the one guy. And it's like you get the here comes the bride, and he's just like no. She like jumps on him and eats his brains.
Now I don't know why there would be a store in the mall that would have like like a visible man or like a model with like anatomical kit. I mean, it's the 80s. They had like fucking gun stores. I don't know, but like I'm picturing this sequence where there's this zombie who has this like plastic model of like a body, and like takes the brain out, gets all excited, all wide-eyed and happy, and takes a bite out of it and like breaks a tooth, and just looking at it like, what the fuck is this?
And continues to try to eat it. Like he keeps breaking teeth. And we could even have that like be an ongoing joke. Like later on, see he's got like one tooth left in his head, and he's gumming the plastic brain.
Yeah, exactly. Like he won't put it away, but he's just with
he's just like gumming away.
He needs to be like in the first scene that we see zombies, and then in like the last scene, and he's still working on it.
I love it. Oh shit. So we have this whole act. We're gonna have to have a few scenes where it's like they have to fight off some zombies. Maybe the zombies see them. They fight them back as best they can, and like lock themselves in another area of the mall. And maybe this is where they come up with the plan, because they're like, we can't get out of here. There's too many of them. And maybe Eddie, he's the one that brings up, like you said, Sam, the whole ice skating thing. He's like, we got to get them all together. We got to get them somewhere that we can take them out. But we have to see that they learn about the electricity thing first. So they learn that that's going to kill them. So
yeah,
maybe there's a big sign in like the food court. You know how the food court sometimes will have those big like illuminated signs, and it might say what the movies are playing or whatever, or some type of advertisement. Maybe like someone falls into that or gets pushed into that.
So I'm also thinking we probably should take out Summer in some way. Like, what I mean? I feel like, Eddie, Julie, Scott, and Bitch Tits, they're going to make it pretty far, like pretty close.
Yeah.
But I feel like Summer is the next one. Maybe Marcy, but I feel like Summer's kind of got to go because he's kind of a dickhead. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I feel like maybe he could get taken out, trying to rescue somebody, and it just goes really badly for him, But this would be a good sequence where, to your point, Sam, something goes wrong where they're sneaking around, and oh shit, they bumped into a group of zombies. Maybe they're in the Radio Shack or someplace where they have like one of those like big like glowing balls you touch, and with electricity in it, like and like just some reason to have like a power source. And so they bump into some zombies, and like maybe there's a zombie who's like trying to get Marcy or trying to get Bitch Tits, and Summer's gonna like try to like sack up. He's like 14 or 15, but he's going to try to be like, all big man and go like fight the zombie, which goes very, very poorly for him. But at the very least, he gets to like knock the zombie over into like some display of like Radio Shack electrical toys. And like maybe the zombie and Summer both get electrocuted, and of course Summer's dead, but then they're like, oh fuck, like the zombie didn't get up either. And that's when they kind of, maybe Bitch Tits is the one who like puts it together.
Okay. Yeah. So we have some kind of sign or some kind of display that is very similar to in part 2, where they ram the zombie and they send him flying into the sign with all the light bulbs on it, and he's like, and he gets electrocuted, and that's why they realize like, oh, electricity kills him. So we could have the same kind of sequence. So they get attacked. We have, like you said, Summer tries to like fight back and the both of them like get electrocuted. Maybe it's something as simple as like he tackles the zombie into the display or into the sign and they both fry.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe it's like
when he's frying, you should have two, like somebody can be like, "Oh, Summer," and he'll be like, "Raven," as the guy.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it should be, he should get at least a little bit of a hero moment, just a little bit, because he is a dick. But like, yeah, maybe it's Bitch Tits who was standing there like looking at something or like waiting, and then like the zombie's coming up behind him, he doesn't see it, and then somewhere just like his knee-jerk reaction is, oh fuck, save my friend, and he like tackles the zombie. You know, obviously, you know, so then it's Bitch Tits, it's Clarence who's like, oh Summer, man, and then you know, Raven.
I love it. Oh my god, that's so freaking funny. Because I can picture it perfectly.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, so like, okay, so they realize like, you know, both of them are fried, you know, and the room fills with smoke and all that, and they're just like, you know, the zombie didn't get back up. They're like, it's dead. And then, you know, Eddie's like, holy shit, electricity kills him. So then they have to like, this is where they piece together their plan. So they're like, we got to figure out a way where we can electrocute the group. You know, and maybe, I don't know if we want Marcy or Eddie, maybe Marcy, because she's the bookworm. Maybe she brings up, she's like, well, we need to get them all in one place and we need something conductive. She's like, what about the sprinkler system? And then, you know, maybe Eddie's like, if we get them all in the ice skating rink, they won't be able to escape. We saw them going after that one guy and they could barely move on it. So if we can lure them out there and we can set off the sprinkler system, we can get them all in one place where they can't run off. That type of a thing. So
yeah, I like that, but let's make it a little bit more organic. Let's do like one piece at a time. Let's have Marcy mention the sprinkler system. So like, yeah, cool. Like, let's go find, like, do you know where the control room is? Have you ever? And she's like, oh, I think the utility room is, you know, back over there by the security office or whatever. And so yeah, as they're going there, they pass by the ice skating rink, and maybe it's Bitch Tits. You give him something to do. Maybe he like elbows Eddie and he's like, dude, you know, and it's like, and then they talk it out and they're like, yeah, the sprinkler system, but what if we got them all trapped in there, you know? And that way it's like you kind of give the audience the plot like a piece at a time and like, you know, build a little tension into it.
Yeah, so we that's where basically where we're going to culminate. So I feel like we're kind of coming up on the end here. So yeah, so we have Julie, Eddie, Marcy, Bitch Tits, and Scott left. And so like Julie hasn't had a whole lot to do other than frying that one zombie. So, you know, do we want to? I'm sure we need to at least have one girl survive. So who's going to survive, Julie or Marcy?
I feel like they always kill the punk in all these 80s movies. Like, I think Julie should live. I think Marcy and Bitch Tits are probably expendable at this point. You know, we know Scott's going to go down. I feel like Eddie should survive. Like, letting the nerd survive the horror movie, I think is pretty cool. It's just a question of is he the only survivor?
No, I feel like we should let Julie, Eddie. You know what? Let's let Julie, Eddie, Marcy, and Bitch Tits survive, because we've killed everybody else. Yeah. So we want to have at least like now we got two guys, two girls that survive.
Okay. Yeah, that works for me.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So we have we're gonna have to have a scene where we have them figure out how to set off the sprinkler system, like how to get all the water that they need. They have to come up with the plan of electrocuting them, and maybe this is where, you know, they're like, we got to lure them to a place where we can fry them all. And have this, we could have the whole back and forth with Scott being like, you know, I'm the fastest, I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. And we forgot to mention, like, Scott is slowly turning throughout this entire movie. Like, we see him getting sicker and sicker. And maybe he's like, you know, they notice, you know, but he's like, I'm fine. You know, I'm not like one of them. I'm not like one of them. Like, the whole time he's like fighting it off. So maybe this is where Eddie like points out, like, you know, Scott, they're not going to go after you. Maybe they even notice, like, oh, okay, hold on. Let me back it up. We could even have the sequence down in the security room where Sally gets taken. Maybe Sally's hanging on Scott, and James and Tom don't even go after Scott. They just go immediately after Sally, and have Eddie take notice. Be like, why didn't they go after him too? Yeah. Like he was right there. And then maybe again we could have in the Radio Shack or whatever, Scott is maybe near Bitch Tits, and, you know, the zombie goes after Bitch Tits and not Scott.
Yeah.
So,
or better yet, let's let this be a separate moment. Like, so we have these little vignettes. So let's let this be a separate moment where when they get to the utility control room to like turn the sprinkler system on or whatever, what if there's like a guy in that office who's just been like banging the wrong way on the door,
Right.
So they open the door, and what if the zombie just runs right at Scott? And Scott is just like, whoa, he puts his arms up, but then the zombie's not trying to bite him. He's literally running against Scott as if Scott's like a pillar or a wall. And he sees everybody else behind Scott, and he's like looking at like Eddie and Julie with like hungry eyes. And Scott's literally there like, what the fuck? Like this guy literally thinks of him as like inanimate. And that's when, Scott just takes the zombie out. And that's when maybe Scott turns and has to have a moment of like, Eddie, like, what's happening to me?
Yeah. And so we have the whole moment of like they realize that Scott's becoming one of them. So maybe he's the one keeps saying like it has to be me. I have to go out there. Like I can do this. I'm gone. I'm done for anyway. That type of thing. And then we could have Eddie do the whole thing where he points out like they're not going to go after you, Scott. We need bait.
Yeah.
And then have him be like it's got to be me. So now we could have our whole like our montage moment where they come up with their plan, where they're crawling through the rafters above the ice skating rink. They set up maybe like it's like a rope ladder or something, and they hang it down. And they're like, okay, Eddie. They're like, and they're plotting it out. Like they got the paper drawn out over like the map of the mall. They're like, you have to run down this corridor, gather these guys. They're like, and you have to make it here. And then if you get on the ladder, we can pull you up and have like, bitch tits, Julie and Marcy like ready to like start pulling the ladder up with Eddie on it, like after he gets out to the ice skating rink. And then we could have like Scott already standing there like holding like a power cord that like he ripped out of the wall or something, and is like ready to like shove it into the ice and with all the water on it from the sprinkler system and electrocute them all. So we of course we're going to have our montage of them setting things up, going over the plan. And then the final plan of Eddie running through the mall. So we're going to have our scary chase moment where we have him like running through the mall, deking out zombies, like sliding under chairs and shit in the food court. Like, and everyone's freaking out because he almost keeps getting killed left, right, and center. Like, oh no, maybe they're doing something like maybe they got like water balloons up in the rafters and they're like throwing water balloons at the zombies, like trying to distract them and get them, wet. So obviously we're gonna culminate the film with, Eddie gets on the ladder, he almost gets bit, but he doesn't. Like they just get him out of harm's way in time. Scott electrocutes them all, including himself. All the zombies get wiped out. Smoke fills the room from all the frickin' electrified corpses, and have like we kind of like fade out and we fade back in. We could see the group like walking toward the broken, shattered mall doors, and have like it's a bright sunny new day, birds are chirping, everything's happy, and have them walking out like kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe we made it through that, and have one of them comment, maybe like Julie be like, I'm really hungry though, and then like Eddie be like, yeah, I could go for some brains, and look right at the screen, freeze frame, credits, because they breathed in the smoke of the burning zombie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That was the moment I had from the like, that was the thing I thought of, and I'm like, fuck, that's gotta be in there somewhere.
Nice.
Oh, fuck yeah. Well, and in that moment, it should be, you said freeze frame, but they should all like Eddie or whoever says brains at the camera, and then you see them all rush at the cameraman, like at the camera. It'd be like that sequence at the very end of the Dawn of the Dead remake when like all the zombies run out of the island and it goes black.
Yeah.
And, like, you get like 1 second of like, and it'll feel like they're running straight at you, like in a 3D movie,
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, cue "Do You Want a Party" or some variation of that, and credits roll. Oh man.
Oh yeah, I love it. This is so cool. This is great. And this is honestly way better than I was expecting. Not that I was, expecting anything bad, obviously, but I was like, I don't know where we're gonna go when we started this. But like, we came up with so many like cool like little moments. I love it when that happens.
Well, and this is one of those projects that we've done where there's not really a story that we're working from. So it's not like, hey, let's reimagine this movie, or hey, let's sequelize this exact film. Like we were kind of all over. Like, it is a sequel to Return of the Living Dead, but we still pulled inspiration from a bunch of other things. So I love it when we can do this, and I think that the only problem I have here is that I can't fucking watch this movie.
I know, right?
Isn't that always the problem?
Yeah, I'm like, I really want to. First of all, I love mall horror. Like Sam, you and I have talked about this before. About mall horror movies are so much fun, and I would love to see Return of the Living Dead in a fucking mall, like done comically, like part 2. Like,
yeah, and I can't help but love the fact that Return of the Living Dead is like a kind of sequel to Night of the Living Dead. Like, it's a squint your eyes at it sequel, you know? And of course, the actual sequel to Night of the Living Dead was Dawn of the Dead, which took place in a mall. And it's like one of the best zombie movies of all time. And there really should be like more mall zombie movies.
Hell yeah.
There just aren't enough. And this is a really good way of doing one without it feeling like, oh, you guys are just copying Dawn of the Dead. Because, Return of the Living Dead is already kind of like skewering the first movie while still kind of playing in the same universe. And so in this way, it's like, we're just doing our own Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like it's homaging a bunch of other zombie movies that, that came before it or that actually exist, currently. But yeah, I think that this would be a lot of fun, and I'm sad I can't watch it.
I know. God damn it.
I'm honored I got to do this with 2 great storytellers. You guys always tell such great stories.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to have you on here with us. Like, you and I used to.
I hope I get to return again.
Oh, absolutely. Like the zombies in this movie, you will definitely come back.
Yeah, definitely. This was a ton of fun, and I'm sorry if we like railroaded, because Mike and I get so excited, when we do this sort of thing. It's like, oh, sorry, there's other people here. I'll shut up for a minute.
Yeah, I kept having trouble. I kept like pausing myself, like, stop talking, Mike, because I kept going, ooh, yeah, and
Yeah, no, it's cool. And the funny part is, all 3 of us were in a zombie movie.
This is very true. We were all in Poultrygeist.
Yep.
That's right. You can see the top half of my face for like a half a second.
Yeah, I was just in the protester scenes. I didn't even make it to a zombie scene since the guy that did my makeup, I don't know, he went off in his own little world.
I got a brief second in the zombie sequence and a brief second in the protest sequence. The thing that made me mad about the zombie sequence is my death. I actually got hurt in doing my death scene, but I stuck with it. And like, they even commented, like, when they yelled cut, they were like, that was awesome. And it didn't make it into the final cut. And I'm like, because like,
that pain.
Well, because I threw myself back against the wall, because they were like, make sure, they were like, whoever the last person that comes into the McDonald's or the, the restaurant, like, throw yourself back. So I get sprayed by Arby with the fucking beer, and I throw myself back. But you know how the windows have that like beam across the center of the window?
Ooh.
Like, I cracked my back on that, and then when I was like, go with it, and I was just like sliding down the wall, and I bopped my head on it. I'm laying there, like, Twitch. They're like, and they're yelling, Twitch. So we're all twitching, and the fucking like the fog machine juice. Like, I was laying right in front of the fog machine, and it fucking squirted hot fog machine juice on the back of my head, and I had a fucking burn on my scalp. Like, when I got married, I still had a fucking burn on my scalp because I got married the following week. So I'm trying
Which we were both there too.
Yeah. I'm trying to brush my hair like before getting my tux on or my suit on. I'm just like, fuck, this hurts.
Yeah, that was a fun day. I was just there for just that one day, again, for the protest scene, to be an extra, and I wanted to go back. And I think I was living in Rochester still, and that's why I couldn't make it back for the zombie day.
I think you were in town that day because all 3 of us went down there together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I think I had come in to hang out with you, Mike, and we used to get together and like work on comics and hang out, and it was like, fuck comics, let's go be extras in a movie.
Yep. Well, the hard part about that is that was a night where you came in the evening because both of us had to work. I had worked 3 to 11, and you were, I forgot which job you were working at, but you were working until the evening as well, and you drove up in the middle of the night. So we started hanging out at like 1 a.m. at my house. The idea was, oh, we'll just crash, get a couple hours of sleep, and then we'll go meet Sam, in Buffalo and go do Poltergeist. And instead, we stayed up all night talking comics, and we're like, dude, we can't sleep now, because if we do, like, we're not going to wake up in time. So we continued to stay up. And then, like, the shoot went until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and we were just fucking dead on our feet. And I remember coming back here, you crashing in my spare bedroom and me going to bed, and I had to get up and work that night, and you had to drive back to Rochester.
Aw.
Yeah, I remember like I did not have any fun that day. Like, it should have been fun. And it was fun like while they were actually filming and we were like jumping up and down and yelling, but most of the day I'm like outside with no sunglasses, and it wasn't that sunny, but it was like, but yeah, we hadn't slept. And so even when you see my freeze frame, every time I see that like clip of the film, like the one, half second where you see my face, all I can see is my giant, like, swollen shut eyes, because I was so tired that I could barely keep my eyes open, and I was like squinting all day.
It was perfect for the movie to be in that shape, like, it worked out.
And I mean, it's still like, it's one of those experiences being in a trauma film for the listeners. Being in a trauma film, it's a hell of an experience, but it's a lot of fun and totally worth it. So if you ever get the chance to volunteer for one of Lloyd's movies, just do it. It's fun.
Yeah, it was definitely
Lloyd's
fun to see all the behind the scenes
too.
stuff.
What's that, Sam?
Lloyd's fantastic too. He's so nice.
Oh yeah, no, he's a fucking sweetheart. Like, and that wasn't the only time I met him. Like, I met him there. That was the first time I ever met him, was on set of Poltergeist. But then a couple years later, he was at Fan Expo, and I remember going to Fan Expo specifically to meet Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos, and like, I was super excited to try to get sketches from them. I only got one from Scotty Young, but freaking Lloyd was there with like a guy dressed up like Toxie, and of course like Trauma Booth babes, and like he's dancing around. He had one of those marshmallow launcher guns, and he was just like shooting marshmallows into the air. And like, I asked him about Poltergeist, he's like, oh, it's coming, I swear it's a coming. Like, he was so excited and like super jazzed to like talk to everybody, and I was like, this guy is just amazing.
Yeah.
Those movies are so ridiculous. I love it.
Oh man. So
but
good.
Sam, we are so happy that you came. I'm so happy that you said yes to join us, and on pretty short notice, and that you were game to just have fun with us. And of course, it had to be a zombie story. We can't hang out with Sam and not talk about zombies. So
of course,
yeah, zombies are the best.
It's one of all of our favorites. So
yeah. Awesome. I love it. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. I will say thanks to the listeners for tuning into the Raised by Rentals program. You can find more about this show online at raisedbyrentals.com and at Raised by Rentals on all the socials. We do belong to the Rad Pantheon, a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, etc. A whole collective of creative friends supporting each other to spread the word about rad stuff. Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot because you're a member of the Rad Pantheon as well. Go ahead and plug whatever you want.
You can find me for Western New York Horror Crew on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. That's WNY Horror Crew, and it's KRUE, like Freddy Krueger. So you can find us there, and there's a link tree. We do also have an adult website where we sell old stuff from the 70s and 80s, books, movies, comics, all adult themed, that you can find in our link tree at any of our social medias.
Awesome.
Yep.
And of course, everyone in Western New York should stop by Jerry's Closet
Oh,
in East
yep.
Aurora. We already mentioned that as well.
Yep, flea market in East Aurora on 20A, right across from the Dollar General.
Perfect. What about you, Mike?
Well, Boogeyman's Closet, as always mentioned on here. We are currently finishing up our Freddy month, and then next month will be all early 2000s horror movies, so from 2000 to 2005. Other than that, there's Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where 3 grown man-children bitch about toys and pop culture.
Always a good time. Always a good time. And you can find my other project on Instagram, where I spotlight crowdfund campaigns for new comic book projects. It is Comics Boost. Just spell comics with an X. And once again, thanks to Sam for joining us. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you had fun with us, please let us know what you think. Drop us a line. Hell, live tweet us or DM us while you're listening to tell us what we forgot, what we screwed up, what cool zombie kill we should have done. Leave a podcast rating and tell us what we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
And we have to return some videotapes.
Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
I think I'm alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone around.